Hello 8th graders. Today we're doing a revision for our grammar lesson. It's all about second conditional. So let's get started. The second conditional describes an imaginary, impossible, unlikely situation in the present or future. Well, let's look at the first example. If I had a lot of money, I would buy an expensive car. So the basic structure of the second conditional, if the condition is true, the result will happen. You have to understand that we have two parts in the sentence. The first part, the one that we started with if, it is the condition. The second part is the result. So, if the condition is true, the result will happen. In fact, in reality, I do not have a lot of money. Unfortunately, I'm not rich. But I'm using the second conditional to imagine having a lot of money. Therefore, the situation is not real. I'm just simply imagining having a lot of money. Perhaps I would go on a holiday. I'm dreaming. Now let's look at the second example. If he knew her telephone number, he would call her. We can also change the order and have the result first. Look at the third example. He would call her if he knew her telephone number. Well, let's look at the meaning of the sentence. What is the meaning of the second sentence? Well, if he knew her telephone number, he would call her. It's impossible for him to call her. By using the second, because he doesn't know her telephone number. By using the second conditional, we are describing an impossible situation. So this is an impossible situation because he doesn't know her telephone number and he can't call her. Look at the third sentence, how we had started with the result. I would call her if he knew her telephone number. It's very important to understand that the past tense is indicating a distance from reality. It is not indicating past time. So, by using past tenses, we're not indicating past time. We're indicating a distance from reality. Well, the meaning of the past simple in these sentences, it doesn't mean that it's happened in the past. The meaning, in fact, it is in the present or in the immediate future. But we use the past simple to show that we are far from reality. Now let's look at the structure of the results. And now let's look at the structure of the results. subject plus would plus base form of the main verb, or we call it the infinitive form. Let's look at the example. If I had lots of money, I would go to London. So I is the subject. And here's would, and here's the infinitive or the base form. And here is the result. So you can see that it's quite easy, but you have to know that we often use the contracted form in spoken English and in informal English. Here are the full forms and the contracted forms. I would go, I'd go. He would go, he'd go. She would go, she'd go. It would go, it'd go. We would go, we'd go. You would go, you'd go. They would go, they'd go. And now let's compare the second conditional with the first conditional. So we're going to make a comparison between the first and the second conditional. Let's look at these two examples. If I became president, I would reduce taxes. Now, the sentence is in the second conditional. Let's do it in the first conditional and see the difference in meaning. If I become president, I will reduce taxes. If I become president, I will reduce taxes. Now let's look at the structure before we talk about the meaning. If I became, so here we have used the past simple tense to indicate a distance from reality, or to imagine, or to dream about the future. I would reduce, and here's would, and the infinitive form of the main verb. Now let's look at the second structure, the second sentence structure. If I become president, I will reduce taxes. Here we have used present simple, will, and the base form of the main verb. Now, let's look at the difference in meaning between the two sentences. The first sentence, it's the second conditional. If I became president, I would reduce taxes. Maybe the speaker, or perhaps the speaker, is a young student dreaming about the future. Maybe she's a young student dreaming about future. But the second sentence, if I become president, I will reduce taxes. This situation is more real. While this situation is not real. So if I become president, I will reduce taxes. This sentence is a realistic promise. Maybe the speaker is perhaps a real candidate for the election. There's a very important thing that you can't forget. Don't forget that you have to use comma when you start the sentence with if. But if we start the sentence with the result clause, we don't use comma. So please don't forget that. This is the end of the class. Thank you for listening, and I will send you a quiz.